la historia de la música del conjunto. Han estado arriba por más de 40 años, ¿no? Por favor, reciban con un fuerte aplauso. Conjunto Music Hall of Famers.
Y'all, we're about to get into it. I'm gonna do a live stream, a surprise live stream right now. You might be catching the recording. Either way, I appreciate y'all. Fixing to talk Bernie. I believe we're live on the internet. You might wonder why is it we got this strange music playing right now. There's a reason for it. Let me turn it up just a little bit, just for a moment. Let you get a taste of it. Alright, let me turn it down a little bit. Alright, some of y'all might be familiar, some of y'all might not be familiar. Broadcast. Shout out to Brenda out there. This is in dedication to you, Brenda. Alright, basically I'm serenading you with this Tejano music. We're gonna cut it off. Wait, hold on. I see that there's somebody up in the building. Look, get a taste of this before we cut it off. Get you a taste. You hear this? Okay. Alright, I know you're here for the Bernie summary. Alright, I don't mean to work you around, give you the business. I'm playing Tejano music. Let me just go ahead and stop this before we start buffering, because Lord knows. If you're familiar with this broadcast, you already know we got a problem with buffering. Okay? You already got a taste. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. I don't know if you like it or not. Alright? And I know, like I said, most people don't. That's why it's not very popular as far as, across, say, America. Alright? It's not necessarily as popular as it is here, and for good reason. That's why it's called Tejano. It's like a play on words, I guess. I don't know. It's like, because Texas, Tejano. And so it's called that, and it's a certain kind of music, as you can see. I don't know if you would describe it as some sort of mumble jumbled up, like polka / it's like a rock and roll, and it's in Spanish. And it's got a certain kind of beat and a rhythm to it. Plus, you got that accordion working. I'm actually a very big fan of it. And I don't know what they're saying, hardly at all. I mean, I know Spanish, but if you're going to sing Spanish, I might be able to catch some of it, but I don't really hardly know what you're saying. That being said, 99 times out of 100, they're singing about romance. And they're singing about a lady, alright? It's really not that hard to figure out. I'm actually a very big fan, even though I don't exactly know what they're saying, of Tejano music, just because, to me, the context is good vibes, alright? And Lord knows, everything happens in Texas. It's a wild place. But for the most part, on the surface of things, when you hear Tejano music, what it should mean is that everybody is having a good time. And for example, if I'm riding around in a car and I hear Tejano music coming from a house or something, coming from a residence, well, I know I'm about to smell barbecue. I know, and I probably already did smell it. They go hand in hand. You're going to smell that sweet Texas. When you heard about Texas barbecue, they weren't lying to you, all right? It's ridiculous. It smells like heaven dropped down onto earth briefly as you're driving by, and then maybe you'll stop in if you know those people. You're like, hey, do y'all have Tejano music on? I know you have some fajitas grilling up somewhere, all right? About to tear into them. And so it's all around good vibes. Okay, the reason I bring it up is I was looking desperately. Oh, I got 2 people up in the building. I want to know about this Bernie rally. Oh, shoot, I'll tell you about it, but let me get this drink. I'll be right back. I got a little bit of soda pop left that I actually procured at a In-N-Out Burger, alright? Which we do now have in San Antonio, and we only recently have had In-N-Out Burgers. They're all right. They're all right. But we just happened to be in the area, so we stopped in right after the Bernie rally, and that took place at Cowboys Dance Hall in San Antonio. And if you're from San Antonio, you heard of it. And there's plenty of different music venues, but Cowboys Dance Hall is it's a pretty good one. I've never been there actually until tonight. All right, for the Bernie Sanders rally, and I thought it was a pretty interesting choice, a pretty interesting pick as far as his venue, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Right? And that credit where credit is due, it was basically ingenious. Basically, like I said, I'd never been there before. I'd only heard about it. You hear about it all the time. Everybody goes to Cowboys for this night racing. And they'll hear this kind of music, for example, but you'll hear all sort of different type of music. Like, for example, I just saw on YouTube right now, you can type in Cowboys Dance Hall and you can find Skrillex, when Skrillex was performing at Cowboys Dance Hall. And you get any number of people performing there, but regularly you would imagine you find some country western type music to include, and it's very closely related to Tejano music, right? And a lot of times people jump back and forth, and sometimes they can get money on both sides, Tejano and the country western world. You got like a George Strait, for example. So okay, I bring that up because at the Bernie rally they had a good Tejano. I mean, and I already like it. And I don't know what you're saying, but um, it's so good. It was so good that I actually spent quite a bit of time looking for it, looking for the band, trying to see if I could find out the band's name. It's got to be written down somewhere, but I just can't find it. I was looking for a video of it and just find out, because I don't keep up with Tejano bands necessarily. All I know is when Tejano music's on, I start dancing, and I'm like, oh, dude, where's the barbecue at? And so it just feels good, but I don't know what they're saying, and so I don't keep up with the music hardly that much. We're looking at like Los Gilbertos right now. I don't know who they are, but I've heard their name a lot. I know that they're real big in Tejano and stuff like that. So I don't know who this band was, and so I'm gonna have to get back to y'all on that. But I spent a whole bunch of time. That's why I'm a little bit late. Actually, later than I want it to be. I don't want to keep my neighbors up. You know what I'm saying? With my loud, stupid, silly, stupid, loud voice. So. But anyways, I couldn't find them, and I'll tell you about them later. Anyways, it was a great Tejano band, and let me just tell you, at the rock stars, absolute rock stars, right? And that just goes for Tejano, like throughout the generations. There's some old guys we were looking at right now, and there's been people who come and gone in the Tejano world, grown old, and they come and gone, right? And there's new people, and it's always continuing. You might not notice it from the rest of the country or around the world, maybe. With Tejano, I mean, that kills, man. Not only you get paid for sure, but oh man, do you get those ladies' attention? If that's what you wanted, and I don't promote that, all right? And I'm not saying that that's what they wanted, but those guys, for example, that I saw, could have any dang lady up in that whole Cowboys dance hall that they wanted to, no questions asked, I don't think. Especially if they were free for the night. Right? It would be no questions asked, right? And I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying a rock star status, dude. And they did a great job, all right? I got to give it up to them. Okay, so let's dive into the Bernie stuff, all right? I said we got 3 people up in the building. I can't even believe it. It's a Saturday night, y'all. Shouldn't y'all be out getting into, no good? You're sitting here and just relaxing, and I appreciate you just chilling and wanting to hear about a Bernie Sanders rally. Well, I got the goods for you, all right? I just came back from a Cowboys dance hall, and like I said, it was kind of ingenious. First of all, you had the Tejano music, which you're not going to mess up with that, all right? That's going to get it every time done in San Antonio. If you're going to have a political rally, you might as well start off with Tejano music. In fact, I'm certain that Hillary Clinton did back when I saw her years ago, and her venue was stupid, right? But I remember specifically Tejano music. I got to imagine Biden had Tejano music. Just, you come to San Antonio, it's fish in a barrel, dude. Play Tejano music, whip out the accordion, and you're going to win every time, right? And that is what happened. Like I said, it's ingenious. I went up into the Cowboys thing. I registered up. I signed up, and I was able to get in. Come to think about it, I registered to go in, and then when I got there, nobody asked me anything anyways. Because Come to think of it, I don't think I got patted down or anything. Like they just say, hey, you don't have no like weapons, right? And I was like, nah. And they're like, I get in there. Come to think of it, there was like no security. Hey, there didn't need to be. There wasn't any sort of skirmishes. I gotta let you know. Or like getting in the rally. Here's what happened. Once we got to the venue, me and a associate. Once we got to the venue, we basically walked straight in. Right? We just so happened to get there at a certain time. We didn't show up there early. Everybody was kind of like, fumbling and bumbling into the door, and we just kind of like walked in with everybody as they were basically finally gathering. All right, maybe 30 minutes before Bernie Sanders hit the stage, and we were watching it on TV, like on this big screens that they had situated at Cowboys Nassau. Like, as everything was approaching, you were seeing San Antonio. If you happen to be watching like CNN or MSNBC or who knows what the hell it was, I don't even care what it was. But they were on TV and they were talking about this caucus and like Nevada, and they were talking about this and that. And so then they would cut to different candidates, and we were seeing it on the big screen while we were waiting, and everybody's clamoring around and clamoring around. All right, and I want to tell you about someone who I was talking to as everybody was clamoring, and we were noticing that San Antonio was on the television, and we were getting excited, and they were cheering for Bernie. I was actually talking to a guy, and it was pretty interesting. But before I talk about that guy, I want to say, like I said, credit where credit is due. Bernie Sanders, his idea was ingenious, right? And I didn't realize it exactly until I got there how ingenious it was. If we go back to the Hillary Clinton rally, which I saw years ago, it was a stupid failure. And whatever, it's laughable. And, I'm sure all the evidence got deleted along with the InfoWars channel because they happened to be there that day and it was documented and I was there and you could see me dancing, right? Take my word for it, but I was. Thing. Okay, all right. I assume I'm still on the internet, you guys. Anyways, hopefully I am. And by the way, I'm going to keep an eye on the comments. I imagine it wouldn't be 3 people in here listening to nothing. All right, so I hope not. But meanwhile, let's get to the heart of the matter. That's Bernie Sanders, you see? And we're about to talk about some stuff. But like I said, ingenious what he did. Because Hillary Clinton, she had a failure of a rally, and then she lost, all right? So that's what happened there. Biden, he came to San Antonio, and I believe he actually, if I am not mistaken, went back to the same exact venue as Hillary Clinton, and that was also a failure. Right? And there was a reason for that, actually. They want to get the San Antonio culture or whatever. They want to get stuff on video cameras and give it to the TV stations, right? And so they're going with how much they can get. For example, like I said about Joe Biden, I said quite decisively, no, he's not going to get 1,000 people. When I heard about Joe Biden coming to San Antonio, I said, there's no way. It's going to be impossible. He's not going to get 1,000 people. He's so excruciatingly unpopular. And just like I'm a damn psychic, it came to fruition. It didn't even come close to 1,000 people, right? So you got to think in terms of strategy. Well, he probably planned the venue for as many people as he thought that he was going to get. And he planned correctly, all right? And I forget what's the venue called, but it's somewhere downtown, and it's outdoors, and it's a little venue where people come together, but it's a little venue, all right? So yeah, you can pack it full of people, but it's a small place anyways. And so that's what Joe Biden did, just like Hillary Clinton did, in the same exact place, if I'm not mistaken. And then, as you'll recall, there was an incident, right? A lot of y'all might recall this. I talked about it a little bit. There was an incident at the Joe Biden rally in which he was confronted, all right? And it was an absolute devastating blow to Joe Biden's, quote, legacy. And that was delivered by, just to bring it back, it was delivered by Brandon from just another channel. He's just another Brandon, and he deals out of the Central Texas area, and he calls people out. He's been on a viral video calling Hillary Clinton out, all right? And he called her out hard in her damn face. And then he called out Joe Biden in his San Antonio rally. Called him out so hard, so damn hard. All right, and you can get different versions of it, but of course on his channel you're gonna get the clear version of him calling out Joe Biden, making him look like a damn fool, calling his son a crackhead, legitimately calling him a crackhead, and saying, what about all that money? You know what I'm saying? What about that Ukraine? What about that prosecutor, huh? You got him fired, huh? And then it called him out, and Joe Biden was like a deer in the headlights, and it was a sincere failure for Joe Biden. I remember that, and I know a lot of y'all ain't forgot that. Okay, but fast forward to the Bernie Sanders rally. He chose a different venue, all right? And I've said it before, but I shouldn't have had to tell you. But Bernie Sanders is actually the most popular Democratic candidate by far, all right? And I know that there's different various polls, but this poll says this, and this poll says these numbers. Doesn't matter at all if you have eyeballs, right? If you have some sort of common sense. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. You see that Bernie Sanders is the top one, all right? Unless you're just so, unless you're just so unbelievably biased. But I've talked to a lot of people. Bernie Sanders is number one. Okay, and so I knew for a fact that he was going to get over 1,000 people easily. He's gonna outdo Biden. He's gonna outdo Hillary. He's more popular. So he chose a different venue. It was Cowboys Dance Hall, which holds more people. And I did a little research because I was just becoming familiar, but it seems as though the capacity for Cowboys Dance Hall, it seems as though, is 1,500 people. Okay, so that's more people. That's definitely more people. And I gotta say, when we got up in the Cowboys and everything was said and done, when the rally was starting, we were packed in there. All right, I believe they reached capacity. All right, so I could easily give them 1,500 people. All right, and probably more than that. I would go ahead and give them 2,000 people. All right, because there might have been people on the outside. I'm not sure. All right. I remember, okay, first of all, the acoustics were something interesting. They're geared towards concerts and stuff like that, and it's kind of like an overwhelming sense. The acoustics of it were definitely crucial in this situation. Okay, so it's kind of like music oriented, and it's meant to kind of consume you and take you over and stuff. So like when people start getting up on podiums, that's also pretty damn loud. And it's pretty overwhelming. And okay, the reason I bring it up, so I want you to imagine a situation, and you can check out the atmosphere if you go onto YouTube.com. You check out, they'll have videos at Cowboys Dance Hall. It's kind of a small place, like I said, 1,500 people capacity. It does have a second floor where people can hang out. And okay, so but it's all kind of you're gonna be all mushed up together, and it's gonna get loud. And okay, so the way that works with people on the podium is they're overwhelming. And the reason I bring it up is because the success that Brandon had, in fact, we'll actually, before we're said and done, we're going to go to Brandon's channel here on this live stream and check out what he got accomplished. And I'll give him props on what he did, but we're going to talk about that and how it didn't exactly hit the mark the same way it did for a Biden and it did for a Hillary. And that's nothing against Brandon and the nice young lady he was with. I'm not criticizing them at all. It's just to say the venue was very difficult in that regard, right? It's to say that while people are speaking on a podium and stuff like that, you can't hear. Ain't nobody gonna hear you, man. Ain't nobody gonna hear you. And it was interesting because I considered it in my head. I was like, what if I wanted to yell out something? What if I found it? And I was waiting for a moment, like if something was said so egregious and there was a pause put in there, yeah, maybe I'll yell out something. It would be funny. No, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because the acoustics were so that if I were to yell my loudest and you were, say, like 6 people away from me, and we're almost together like sardines, and you're 6 people away from me, you probably don't even hear what I'm saying. You're probably not even going to hear it. So it's like you might hear a commotion, but you'd be like, what the hell is that crazy person doing? Who knows? Okay? And so Bernie Sanders, all together, the venue worked out very great for him. And although Brandon and his associates did try their best, and all credit due to them, it did not work at all. It did not work at all. And I gotta say, Bernie actually went ahead and steamrolled over them. So not only was his venue perfect for what he's doing, trying to not get called out, he desperately doesn't want to get called out or anything. So not only did the venue cater to that, like just like it was designed for that. Also, Bernie, what I gotta give him credit, because see, here's the thing, and don't rush to judgment right now. But I'm gonna give Bernie credit in what he does. It's a craft what he does. Now, does he? What does Bernie Sanders believe in? I couldn't tell you. I don't know if he could tell you. Right? To be very honest, what does he believe in? I don't know. But as far as his craft, he's honed it. He's honed that craft in a way that Joe Biden could only imagine, to be honest with you. Joe Biden actually doesn't, he's not good in that regard. He might be good in debates, but I doubt it. The thing is, he's not good in the way that Bernie Sanders is good at his craft. A case in point, you might have seen it all in these different videos on the internet you've seen, but I've seen it in person. I've seen him doing it. Okay. He speaks in such a way, and you could tell that he's in his head molded every last sentence that he said. And perhaps it's like a nervous tick that goes on all throughout the rest of the day. But what he does is, whether or not he knows it, he probably does know it, he's consciously or subconsciously planning out his speech his entire day. And then when he gets out of the speech, it's not that hard. It's like 10 minutes. He's up there for like 10, 12 minutes. I don't know. It was not long. And here's the thing about his speech. If you know about any of Bernie Sanders' rhetoric, if you can cut out any of it on the internet, he did not say anything new. There's nothing new that he was sharing at all. Nothing's new, all right? So if you wanted to hear a Bernie Sanders rally here in San Antonio, just go to any rally that you've seen him at recently. He said all the same exact things. So he doesn't have much that he really has to think about necessarily. You know how we're out there and we got to think about these things constantly and how to work out problems and stuff? No, he's just thinking about the same thing over and over. He's thinking about his speech, and that's all he has to do. Remember that that's all he has to do. Think about it. What else does he have to do? Nothing? Nothing at all. All right, and that's what he's doing all day. And it's kind of like an autistic, like on the spectrum sort of thing. It's a constant. It's kind of like he's built for that. It's like he found his niche and then he's built for it. That is his lifestyle. His lifestyle is Bernie Sanders, right? Heart attack or no heart attack, this is what he knows. This is what he does. This is the only thing he does, right? And so that's to say, what I notice about his speaking style is there might be pauses in it, but you could tell that they're carefully placed. And that's how you know, dang, dude, the way he's talking is tactical. The way he's talking is strategically and very, very carefully mapped out. I don't care how annoying it is and how annoying his waggly finger is. All right, everything is completely specifically designed. All right, like I said, his pauses happen at a particular time in which it doesn't make sense to interject. And when he says something, and you can tell, he says these things that are controversial, that of course are disturbing or alarming to people like, say, maybe you and me. And when he's saying these things, there is no pause. I don't care if there's a period. I don't care how many different sentences. He will not pause. He'll go straight through it. You're not talking over him. He's just going to run right through it. Maybe if you're in the Black Lives Matters, you might be able to run up on the stage and just jack the mic from him. That is possible. That might be your way in. But if you're trying to talk over him at Cowboys Dance Hall, it is not going to happen, period. There's no pauses. The pauses are only put in the right particular places, and then you'll hear about it, and then, you know, the thing is, you gotta assume that most of these politicians are disingenuous, but it'll give you a real idea. You'll start to get real enlightened about how just disingenuous it has to be, where he's thinking of constantly, and mind you, like I said, he said nothing new, so he's thinking constantly about how to divide people along the lines of race, all right, period. And it's pretty much, that's just what it is. It's hard for me. I mean, I don't know if you could debate me on that. That's on the surface of things. It's a racially divided movement that he's trying, in the sense that it's always trying to bolster up certain groups and not other groups. I think you know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to mention the groups. But I'll go ahead and mention the groups, even though I don't have to. He'll mention black folks, which he refers to as African Americans. I don't know the terminology, dude. I couldn't tell you what's right or wrong, but he's talking about black folks. He says Hispanic folks, Latinos, and he says, you know, native indigenous Americans. But when he refers to white people, it's in like forget about them type of stuff. It's like, who cares about them? In fact, they're trying to oppress people. It's this white. I swear I think he said white supremacy. He was talking about white. I'm pretty sure he said supremacy. In fact, I don't think he's the only one. All right, but it's very anti-white, and it's so interesting because, like, for example, you start off the rally with Tejano music, and for those who don't know, it's basically cultural appropriation. What Tejano music is, it's basically white people and brown people coming together, mashing their cultures together, and dancing and getting drunk and drinking beers, and playing the accordion. All right, that's what Tejano music is. That's where it's come from. All right, so it's constantly always dividing, and it's tactical. He's always thinking about this, even though it doesn't make no damn difference. Here's the thing. It's ingenious. It's ingenious. And I wanted to talk about some of the people that I met tonight, and it's very interesting. I met a handful of people, and I talked to them to certain various degrees. Right? Okay, but it's interesting how he runs game, and it's very anti-white and stuff. And you know, isn't it weird how, like, in the Trump, or not the Trump rally, but the Bernie Sanders rally, how the people, this is San Antonio, there are white people in the crowd, and there's a whole bunch of white people in the crowd, and they're all cheering for it. I just gotta let you know, it's half brown people, half white people. There's certain percentages of black people, Asian people. Certainly, we have everybody under the rainbow, but mostly it's brown and white people. And we're all, and obviously I didn't cheer for anything. I was standing there in a sea of people, and I wasn't too far from Bernie. I gotta say, I was maybe like, in total, maybe 20 yards away from Bernie. So I wasn't very far. And there's all sort of people, and they can't help but have a. Here's the thing. I want to explain that from this angle, from where I'm at in America, I wouldn't even call it a hatred for white people. If I'm being very genuine, it's not a hatred for white people. Not in this particular area. Probably it is in most areas, but in this area, it's not a hatred for white people. What it is an envy of white people. And I don't mean to demean nobody and stuff. I don't get no privilege from my skin tone, to be honest with you. But it's an envy for white people. It's like they're looking at white people and they say, oh man, look, these white people, they got everything. And it's like they're just running and running all over the place and balling all over us. And, you know, and we want to ball too. That's kind of what the angle is. And so people get charged up. It's not about hatred because, like I said, half of the people there are white. So it's not like they're advocating for violence against whites. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders is white. The whitest person I ever seen in my life. Although he did have a very good tan, I gotta say. He must have been hanging out in Texas for a little bit. He had a pretty good tan. Okay, but it's not a hatred. Sometimes it might be a hatred, right? And certain people in the crowd probably do hate white people. Yeah, that's true. But overall, it was an envy for white people, and I found that kind of disturbing. Right. Meanwhile, of course, there's always the accusations for Donald Trump, and we're actually going to talk about Donald Trump right now a little bit. But of course, they're talking stuff about Donald Trump. Half the stinking rally and the rhetoric, which honestly was kind of boring because, like I said, I heard all of it before, anyways. Half of the rhetoric was about Donald Trump. It's like, dude, I mean, at this point, I know it's a political thing. I know you're about to go on a race with them. But could you grow the hell up, dude? Could you honestly grow up? Could you honestly grow up? Could you honestly grow up? I watched a episode from Family Matters. I don't know if y'all recall that show. I'll keep an eye on the comments. Y'all let me know if you recall Family Matters, please. Steve Urkel and that. But anyways, there was an episode a long time ago where Eddie Winslow... hold on, where were we at? Eddie Winslow, he went ahead. I hope we didn't lose our place because I want to see Bernie. Oh man, it's a different people. All right, I don't know. They'll probably have it down here. We're gonna look for it in a second. Probably tragic things are being. I don't want to get sidetracked, but weird stuff's popping off. Look at Joe Biden for a second. Or in fact, stop. You don't need to look at him. But we're gonna get back to that Bernie thing because they're saying something about Trump. All right. But okay, remember the rally I was talking about? Bernie Sanders. He was talking about Donald Trump like half the time. Okay, and he's saying these things which were obviously lies. They were just straight up and down lies. And the thing is, nobody could interject because of the style, because of the acoustics. There was no interjecting. So whatever Bernie says, that's what's going. All right. And so he said all that about Donald Trump. Meanwhile, nothing can be further from the truth. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you have eyeballs, you see Donald Trump rally and how it's just all sort of different type of people. Right? You could deny that. So certain people are going to go to the lengths of denying that. But I don't think most people would. After a while, people would figure it out. There's a whole bunch of different people at Donald Trump rallies, right? Especially in San Antonio. You're going to find a lot of brown people. Here's the thing. We never had a rally for Donald Trump in San Antonio. We might talk about that a little bit. The hypotheticals of Donald Trump in San Antonio. All right. But that's the thing. It's bold-faced lies. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is bringing together racists for better or for worse, whether or not you can trust him or not, whether or not he's doing a good job or not. Still, he's bringing together racists. He's not being a dang racist. I don't know. We already know. All right? We don't have to say that. It's never happened before. It's never been recorded. All right? But Bernie Sanders, he went ahead and did that. Meanwhile, he's kind of dividing up people by race while he's doing it. And I think it's a disservice, obviously, to people in general, right? And it doesn't necessarily make no sense. But the thing is, I was going to feel for the crowd. I was immersed in the crowd. I wanted to be immersed in the Bernie bro vibes. And I feel like I did. In fact, before Bernie was coming up, I talked to a young man, probably a little bit older than myself. It's hard to tell, but a little bit of a shorter fella and stuff. A very enjoyable man. We had a good discourse, right? And while we were waiting for Bernie to come up, he just started I don't know if they do it maybe that's how they do it everywhere, but around here, you'll just start saying words out your mouth. And then some people, if they'll turn around, they might look at you, and then you're in a conversation, right? And now you're talking about some stuff. And so he started saying some words out of his mouth, and I heard it, and I looked around, and we made eye contact. And so we started talking. You can tell he's on a Bernie Sanders rally. He's there for Bernie. So I started talking with him. And just to make a long story short, without discussing all the different various details, because we talked for like 15, 20 minutes, right? There's a lot of stuff that I found I was focusing on because, I could definitely come out and say this and that about Bernie Sanders and get on his bad side, right? He's at a Bernie Sanders rally. That wouldn't hardly make any sense, would it? So what I did is I talked about what he wanted to talk about. It's a conversational skill of just leading a person. That's what makes you a good interviewer, by the way. If you can properly just lead a person into talking about what they want to talk about, what's important to them. Ultimately, it's a little bit more interesting. And so I'm just feeding this guy. I'm like, hey, why are you here? Well, you like this stuff? Oh man, you like Bernie? Oh, so what's your favorite thing about Bernie? And this and that. And just kind of letting the conversation go to where it went naturally. And I gotta say, it's very enlightening. He's a Bernie bro. Just to give a brief summary, he said he was in the nursing field or in the medical field, something along those lines. So he knows about the medical field, and he has concerns there. And we talked about those things, and we talked about different other things. But to summarize what we talked about is I noted that we have a lot of similarities, and that you could tell he's getting that he's coming from a place of genuinely, he's in the medical field. He doesn't want to see people suffer. He doesn't want to see people raked over the coals. I know there's a lot of people from places where they have universal health care or whatever, and they think about America, and they think about how we're being price gouged, and they think about how we're being run over the muck, the mire, if you will, in concerns with these medical bills and stuff like that. He was also concerned about it, and we talked about different various solutions and stuff. We talked about transparency. I brought that up. In fact, I think he brought that up as far as the pricing. We don't have transparency, And we can go off on a tangent about the different various details concerning, say, healthcare, because we talked about immigration. We talked about this and that. But what it struck me as most interesting is, and this was what I hooked on, and it just really perked up my ears when he was saying that there's things about Bernie that he was dissatisfied with. And I was like, okay, now we're cooking. What is it that you're dissatisfied with Bernie on? I asked him, and he told me this whole Russian thing, for example. Right, and I think I want to hear y'all's feedback, but he said the Russian thing. He said, I wish Bernie would drop this whole Russia thing. Right, and also basically what he's stating is like the whole Democratic Party, if you will, all going gung ho on this Russia thing. He's like, I wish they would stop that. I wish they would stop that, and I wish Bernie would stop that. And he's very stern about it in a sense like that. He was very decided on that. He wishes that Bernie would stop that whole Russia thing. You might ask why. Well, if you haven't caught it already, it seems as though he said, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, but the guy who I was talking to said that they're already starting to call Bernie Sanders a Russian agent. All right? And maybe you're not surprised by that, or maybe you're startled by that. But yeah, obviously that was inevitable. Well, see, once you give a moose a muffin, they're gonna want some of that blackberry jam, and then who knows what else? The sky's the limit. So they're gonna call anybody and everybody a Russian agent, even though like that makes any damn difference. All right, so now they're starting to call Bernie, and he got wind of it. He's like, dude, I've heard them calling Bernie a Russian agent. So if Bernie buys into calling Donald Trump a Russian agent, meanwhile, he was just acquitted of all this tomfoolery in front of everybody. So you can see how Bernie Sanders, and he's explaining to me, he's like, Bernie Sanders basically tying his own noose right now, right? And I didn't go ahead and tell him necessarily my opinions. I was satisfied with his. But it kind of leads me to my theory is that, and I've said this before, and I know a lot of people said it. I'm not the only one saying this. But yeah, still, organically, I came to the conclusion that Bernie Sanders absolutely does not want to be president, all right? That's the last thing in the world that Bernie Sanders would want. Think about what I just said earlier. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But if your whole lifestyle is honing a speech and your craft is doing these speeches, and meanwhile you're promising people all sort of goodies that there's no way that you can pull all this off. You wouldn't know the first thing about how to pull any of this off. All right. But your craft is doing these speeches. So if you think about it, wouldn't you want to keep doing the speeches and getting the money that you're getting, that you've been getting for years? Wouldn't you want to just keep doing that instead of be the president because you don't have no clue how to be the president and you never dreamt you would ever? You're not trying to be the president. All right. So in that sense, of course, it really doesn't matter if he keeps calling Donald a Russian agent. He's going to allow them to call him a Russian agent. He's going to gracefully bow out. Ain't no way he's going to be the candidate. All right. And that being said, it brings me to another crucial note. While I was in the Cowboys dance hall, I was kind of dwelling upon it. All those people, like I said, there'll be some that honestly hate white people. There'll be some that do. But if they do, they certainly don't have the guts to just start spouting off about it. So everybody was peaceful and in harmony and stuff, and no one's really having a problem. However, like I said, they had that kind of like maybe a white envy. And instead of these so-called white people who got all the privileges, they want some of the privileges, right? They didn't seem violent. These are the type of people who, yeah, they could get belligerent. And trust me, I know these people, right? They could get violent at the drop of a hat. That's true. But until that point, they're actually people that's easy to get along with. All sort of people. All sort of people, man. That's really truly my people and stuff. When you consider just people that's like easy to get along with, blend into this crowd. It's my crowd, I guess you would say. And of course, at the same time, not my crowd. They're Bernie people. And I figured it out a long time ago. That's not the way to go, all right? Okay. But the crowd wasn't very hateful or anything like that, right? And so Outside, there was, as you might imagine, in a pretty good amount. In fact, I got picture evidence. There was Trump people, or there was just, say, America people, anti-Bernie people out there, like protesters, whatever. They're out near the street, and they're hanging out by the street, and they're doing their own thing. I don't think it was a big problem necessarily, you know. I didn't see too much commotion, all right? There was this and that going on, but it wasn't too much commotion, okay? After the Bernie rally was over, you might have, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about this, there might have been some shouting back and forth between, you know, the constituencies. But I didn't see anything really. It's a peaceful place. Like San Antonio is large in part, there's wild stuff that goes on, but for the most part, it's peaceful. When it's not total extreme violence, you know, people are straight up chilling, and they're not exactly trying to fight each other necessarily. But what I gotta explain about these Bernie people, and it's probably obvious to a lot of y'all out there, but I want to drive the point home, is this whole crowd in the Cowboys Nassau, yeah, they're naive. Yeah, they're misled. Yeah, they're getting set up for a devastating blow. And in that, they didn't learn a lesson that a lot of people learned in 2016. And that is the lesson that Bernie Sanders will lay down all the way on the ground. He'll smush his nose on the ground, right? And Hillary Clinton will just do a tap dance on top, or whoever else, right? He'll do it if it's Democrats and he's getting that money. He'll lie all the way down. And so that's the lesson they learned in 2016. Some people didn't learn it, but however, they're fixing to learn it again, right? And I'm talking about inevitable, right? There's no way around it. You might call me a psychic later. You can do whatever you like, but he's not going nowhere. As far as the kind of see, they're gonna pick someone else, and that whole room of people who they were gung-ho about chanting, oh, Donald Trump, we don't like him, he's racist and hateful. Yeah, they're going to be all disillusioned, all those people. They're not going to want to vote for any of these other Democrats. They're already making it well known. It's like they don't want any of these other Democrats, and who could blame them? Right? And like I said, they're not so hateful as certain other Democrats would be, I think. If I had to guess, there'd be certain other Democratic candidates who have a more hateful constituency than the Bernie bros. They're going to get disillusioned. Meaning that when their hearts get ripped in two in the next coming months, when it gets shattered, when all their dreams get shattered, they're going to go one way or the other. Either they're going to slip into all sort of devastation and depression and, you know, murderous rage. I don't know. They could go that way. Or there's going to be some, just like in 2016, that get moved a little bit to the right because they realize they're just getting worked over. Just like the people in 2016, they don't realize they got worked over. There's some people in there that's intelligent. I was talking to a guy, and he's in the medical field. He's intelligent to a certain extent. He's going to realize he got worked over. In fact, he already realized. I asked him about it. I was like, what about 2016? Didn't he get worked over? Wasn't he the most popular candidate in 2016? And the guy knew full well. Yeah, he was. Right? He's going to be the same way this time. And all this stuff's going to happen. So that's why I think it was a great idea. And not only was it not going to work out for me, if I tried to yell, nobody was going to hear it. So I just had a conversation with that guy, and then I wound up having a conversation with another guy. Alright, and I'll show you actually the pictures of it so we can get that out of the way. If you're checking out the visual, I actually got a lady to take pictures of me. Check me out. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can zoom in. That's actually me on the left. I got a haircut, right? And yeah, that's a sexy beard. That's me. I was just hanging out with this guy. This guy was strapped down. I didn't know who this guy was. I just saw him, and I was like, oh, there's a guy in a mask. I was like, dude, you want to talk to... And this is a guy. This is the guy in the blue. He's a stranger who I don't know. I don't know his name, so I don't know his identity. Don't ask me. But he thought he was posting a picture, and so that's me. I had the Donald Trump is innocent shirt on, representing, all right? Some people liked it. And mind you, I was hanging out with Bernie people. The thing is, I was wearing a sweater when I went into the Bernie rally, but when I came out, I just took it off, and I was like, oh, yeah. And people started looking at me funny. And I was like, I went up to the guy with the mask. I was like, hey, bro, what the hell? What's going on with you? And he seemed like he had it all together. So I was like, well, can you take a picture with us? And there was a come take it sign, in back of us. And I don't remember if it has a cannon or what kind of gun it might have. Come and take it, big old thing. Oh yeah, let's see, let's go back on it. Oh yeah, it is a gun. Yeah. So super big, come and take it, and we're gonna talk about that. I see the most important points we haven't even talked about yet. I don't know how far in the broadcast we are, but dang. There's still some more important points. In fact, the theme of the story I haven't even got to yet. The morals of the story that I took away from tonight. The main significant points. I still got to get to them, and it involves the history of San Antonio. All right, but that's me, and we're hanging out. Let's see. There's just other pictures. We're just hanging out. We were like shouting at people. I don't know what we were saying and stuff, and we just had a good old time. So I was talking to that guy. I talked to some other guy, and he is strapped down with this. That's the thing about it. If you're not shooting people, I don't have a problem with it. It's like it doesn't matter to me at all. And I know a lot of people would be scared, but it's like, okay, if you're not shooting people, I'm not sure why I'd be scared. Because you have all the capabilities to shoot people right now if you really wanted to. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I don't know, it's a fun thing to do. But meanwhile, while we're by this flag, we were actually by the side of the road, and people were shouting at us and driving past and yelling, "Oh, Bernie forever, Bernie forever! We're gonna take y'all down!" Or so, just taunting and stuff. And so that was us hanging out. But not only did I talk to him, I talked to the other guy with the gun. Um, I talked to this young lady actually briefly, and we were actually talking, and I had my shirt out and everything, and she's a Bernie bro lady and a Bernie sis. And I was talking to this lady, and I was shirt out and everything, and we were just talking together, and she kind of started the conversation by talking about, it's kind of nice how it's all amicable. We had a couple of people yelling back and forth, Shirley, but when we got to the side of the road and they had these big old flags and they're waving the American flag and they're all about Donald Trump, they got Donald Trump shirts on and stuff. And meanwhile, the Bernie bros and certain Bernie people were coming out, and they might have been talking back and forth, but it wasn't really very confrontational. In fact, there was people off on the sides just having their little various conversations. I was talking to the gun dude, and I had pictures taken. I talked to some other people who actually I took pictures for them. They thought I was a Bernie bro, and they were like, "Hey, can you take our pictures?" And they were like taunting the Donald Trump people. And they thought I was a Bernie bro because I didn't take off my sweater yet. And so I was taking pictures for them. I was like, "Haha, yeah, I'm a Bernie bro too. I love this. I love this." And I was taking pictures. And it's funny, and then like the Trump guy came up to me, some Puerto Rican Trump fan came up to me. He was like, "Hey man, don't you understand?" Because he thought I was a Bernie bro. I didn't take off my sweater yet. And he's like, "Don't you understand how it's so awesome that I'm not kicking your ass right now?" I was like, he literally said that to me, and I knew what he meant, although it could sound threatening, but he was basically saying like, "Don't you like how we can just talk together and we don't have to be fighting each other?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love how that, nobody's kicking my ass right now. Nobody's even trying to kick my ass right now." And so I took off the sweater, and then he was like, "Oh, no, you didn't." I was like, "Yeah, I did." And then we all laughed, and the Bernie bro people were like kind of dismayed, and they're like, "Oh, man, we didn't realize." And I just played a trick on them and stuff. We had a whole bunch of fun, all right? Talked to a whole bunch of people. Talked to a lot of Bernie bros, okay? Whole bunch of fun. Okay, I want to talk about the main notes before we get out of here and stuff. I feel like we put a good, that was a summary of what took place. Not very much, not very violent. People in San Antonio, we tend to have some manners, dude, and I have a respect for it. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it. Where does that come from? Where people come together, dude, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. In fact, they were chanting against Donald Trump, but in essence, they were chanting against the idea of racism. Someone made them to believe Donald Trump's a racist, so they're against it. See, it's a good thing that they're against it. They don't realize how they're being manipulated. But I like the fact is that they're not so concerned about everybody's damn skin tone. In fact, they want to get past it. They don't realize that we're already past it, and that the news is actually lying all day, right? But they'll find out. And only time, actually, sooner rather than later, they're gonna find out. All right, I'm talking about before the end of the year. Devastating red pills are gonna fall all over their head, whether they like it or not. And somebody needs to be able to catch them. All right, pick up the pieces. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, the main problems or the main points that I wanted to make tonight. Let's go back to, maybe we'll go back to Bernie. I always say bring out that thing that we were looking at earlier when it was talking about Bernie and it was talking about Donald Trump or some sort of article that we were looking at. Maybe it'll bring it up if I type in those things, type in the news. All right, but meanwhile, okay, if you know the rhetoric of Bernie Sanders, like I said, nothing new tonight. I find it deeply disturbing and alarming. All right, mind you, all those people, I don't hate anybody, but those people at the Bernie rally, props to them. All right, I don't have nothing against them necessarily. All right, but here's the problem: they're getting misled and tomfooled into agreeing to all sort of things, and maybe they stand for these things. Maybe they don't quite understand what's going on yet. There's a lot of people who like Bernie Sanders for his different policies on certain topics, right? And so that they take the rest of Bernie Sanders with a grain of salt. Like they really like his so-called stance against the war on drugs, right? So they love that idea, getting rid of the war on drugs. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders doesn't plan to ever do a damn thing because he ain't going to be the president. So he can say whatever he wants to. He could say, yeah, let's end the war on drugs. And then it's basically like saying, it's basically like saying, oh, we're gouging your eyeballs out. How about we stop gouging your eyeballs out? And then the crowd's like, oh yeah, we don't want our eyeballs gouged out. Yeah, and so they start cheering for that. But meanwhile, it's y'all gouging our eyeballs out to begin with. Okay? But there's things that might go under the radar. Trust me, it's documented. It's well documented. All right? But before we get out of here, we're gonna play that Brandon clip, and I'll play it probably more into the future. But it was an interesting clip. We're gonna play it as far as what he got on his channel. But I wanted to drive this home. Is that here's where I disagree with Bernie Sanders. And technically speaking, when you're talking about San Antonio, Texas, and if you're considering the history of it, you're considering the culture of it, where it came from, and who, like for example, who called it San Antonio, who founded the little tiny town, and that grew up into a great metropolis. Who was it who did it? Why did they do it? What did they have on their minds and on their hearts? That's what I wonder. What about the history of San Antonio? Does that matter at all? What about the people who fought and died on the very soil of San Antonio? Does that matter at all? Okay, so with that being said, for example, Bernie Sanders, amongst all sort of other things I disagree with, Bernie Sanders can't wait to tie on in his hypothetical presidency all sort of Green New Deals, all right, to, quote, save the environment. All right, and I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth when I say he wants to cool the earth down. He thinks it's getting too hot. Okay, whatever you might think about that, you can go ahead and check it out. He thinks that the globe is warming over. Okay, and so he's got plans for that, right? Of course, that's going to include carbon taxes and everything else that you already knew that it was coming down the pike. But okay, yeah, it is, but. You know, it's very interesting, and I might have to go to that video clip too to see if it's in my history. There might be a couple video clips that we need to see before we get out of here. But he wants to fight against climate change. He wants to fight against the ruining of the earth. The earth is going to explode into smithereens within a decade or so, and he wants to fight against that. What's his main strategy? Abortion. Oh yeah, that might sound fanatical. I don't know if that sounds fanatical to you or fantastic or on the fringe or something. Abortion. That's his main plan. Right? And he says so specifically, actually, when being asked about it. And I don't know if he's going to backtrack on it, but basically he said, you know, we don't fight global warming. I think it's very important that women have the right to choose what to do with their bodies. All right? in America, I can't do a good impression of him, but he's like, we want to fight global warming. It's important that women in America keep killing their babies. All right? You're stinking environmental killing babies. Or, I mean, you know, it's like, don't have the babies, you're messing up the earth. And to go even further, he didn't really even say that hard about America. He just said it's good that Americans have the right to kill their babies. He didn't say that they should, but he went on the limb of saying that what we should do is fund, literally, taxpayer money straight directly to abortions abroad in other countries, to include especially Africa and Asia. I don't know if you might call that racist, but directly what he said, and we'll go to a clip in a second, see if you can kind of get like a summary, because I'm not making it up. He said we need to make sure to fund abortions all over the world, especially in Africa and Asia and stuff, and it's going to help the environment. Alright, and so I totally disagree with that, to be honest with you. And I already stated my theory. And actually, it might benefit on going to the clip that I saw earlier, because there's a dude talking about it, in which Bernie Sanders, he's basically saying what I just said right now. What I said, he said. And I don't know if you heard that before, but he did say basically that, not in the exact words that I said it, but in the same exact meaning. All right, so if we go through the history, I saw it earlier today, go through my history, and there's something interesting said about it. Like I said, exactly what I said. The world warming over, climate change, need to battle it. How? Abortions. And we need to start funding abortions abroad, and that way we'll make sure the environment is well taken care of. All right, and in fact, I think I put it, if I remember correctly, we'll see if I was responsible, but I think I put it in the broadcast playlist. That would have been a good idea. Okay, and I did. Look, I did it. All right, we have it right here lined up. And like I said, right after that, we're going to get to the Just Another channel. It's this guy, Brandon, all right, in which he's in the Bernie rally. And we're going to watch that before we get out of here. But I want to show you only part of this video, in which, like I said, Bernie Sanders was talking about exactly what I just told you right now. And then afterwards, we get an opinion from a person, I forget who they said what his name was, but he winds up, and he's of a Catholic persuasion. I don't know, I don't vouch for him because I don't know him, but what he was saying was the same, along the lines of something that I said before, only maybe a week ago, or a few broadcasts ago. I said the same exact thing, that basically what he's about to say, and isn't it interesting? I never heard of this guy before, but I just want to give you a taste, and hopefully it doesn't buffer right quick, but I think you're going to really take something away from this guy. I find it very interesting. Okay, let's see if we get the volume right.
His plan to protect the environment if he's elected president. Faithful Catholics are condemning his comments and calling them disturbing. They came during a CNN town hall on climate change. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi joins us with more. Jason.
Wyatt, 7 hours of town halls, one Democratic presidential candidate after another, 10 in all taking questions, some proposing simple changes like banning plastic straws. Senator Bernie Sanders with a more radical approach that today some are calling alarming.
Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth.
A teacher from Connecticut worries about a population bomb.
Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact.
She asks if Senator Bernie Sanders will make population control a key part of his plan.
They have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions. So I think, especially in poor countries around the
world. Y'all. Let's take a time out. Let's see if I can get some feedback too also. I assume that the volume's coming in pretty good, but at the same time, I think it went to buffering. And we were only playing a little small clip. I don't know if it came in through, but hopefully it did. I noticed it started kind of buffering towards the end. I don't know if you ever seen that clip before, but it kind of blows my mind how I described exactly what he said, and even I thought it sounded absurd. Even when I was saying it, I was like, "Did he really say that, or did I remember it incorrectly?" And then I play the video again, and he says exactly that. He was asked about the climate change, and whether or not we need to abort all our babies. And he's like, yeah, I think it's a good thing that we have the right to abort all the babies. And he then goes further on and he says, and you can go onto the YouTube, CNN's YouTube, and you can see it. Or no, not CNN's YouTube, but EWTN's YouTube. It's called Catholics Condemn Comments by Bernie Sanders. And he then goes on to say that we actually need to start funding the abortions of people in other countries and stuff, and that's really going to crack down on the climate change. That's unfortunate. I think he's gone into crazy cuckoo nutballs land, but the thing is, he's not the only one there, and so he's just pandering to a certain constituency. Whether or not he believes any of it, I don't know. Does it even matter whether or not he believes it? Okay, but here's the thing. Like I said, before we try to play a little bit more of that video, and hopefully y'all it's coming in just fine. But it's deeply offensive to San Antonio and its culture and its history. All right, we want to get out of here pretty soon, around about 10 more minutes. But what I want to explain is that okay, it's called San Antonio, and there's so many details that I could throw out necessarily. I won't have time for all of them, but it's called San Antonio. That's the name of the town. That's the name of the city. It's going to sound very elementary what I'm saying, and you might not follow me yet, but it's called San Antonio. Alright? What does that mean? Well, San Antonio itself, as you might imagine, it's basically means Saint Antonio. It's about Saint Anthony, alright, which can be, converted to Antonio if you have any Spanish, I guess. And Saint Anthony of, what's it, Padua? Or something like that. Is a saint, right? Named Anthony. And the city was named after that, right? And it's called the San Antonio River. By whom? I don't want to get all the details. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of all the details, but basically Spanish settlers, and certain ones in particular, came across this particular land, started the land. Yeah, there was people around San Antonio, the Native Americans, you call them that, and they kind of got together, and they sort of worked together, and they had a feast, towards Saint Anthony on Saint Anthony's holiday and stuff like that, and they founded San Antonio, and that is where it came from, right? These people, they were Spanish explorers, from what I understand, and they were of the Catholic persuasion, as you might assume, because they called it Saint Antonio. They called it San Antonio. So you can imagine that they were Catholic because they're dealing in saints. They're talking about this Christian stuff, right? Back then when it was founded, okay? So it's founded by these people. It's founded specifically by Catholics, and I'm not saying that for no reason. I'm saying that because even as San Antonio is growing so big as it is, the founders could have had no clue at all that the city would ever get to be so big. I mean, they would have never dreamt of it. Okay, but however, I don't bring it up for no reason because there's a lot of people in San Antonio who to this day, and especially the older folks, but to this day, will consider themselves Catholic, like what is Roman Catholic. That's what they consider the majority of San Antonio. Alright, and it's dwindling now as the generations, as it get into my generation, it's dwindling a little bit. But up until that point, it's strong Catholic, that's the culture, Catholic. The San Antonio founded Catholic, that's why it's called San Antonio. Very simple. Very simple. So when you think about that, like timeless tradition, you're considering Catholics, and I don't vouch for the Pope, I gotta be honest with you. I don't trust him from a damn hole in the ground. But, the thing is, a lot of Catholic people in San Antonio, rich Catholic tradition. You might recall that abortion used to be called murder. All right? It's called San Antonio. Rich Catholic tradition. You're going to come in and say we need to murder all the babies to save the world? right? And you're gonna like, you bamboozled all these people who might not even be signed on for murdering babies like you're saying to save the world, because you didn't say that tonight. They might not know exactly what's your idea about eliminating human beings. They might not know that yet, but that's actually something they stood against, historically speaking, culturally speaking. All right, and I'm sure there's many different details. We're going to cut it short for tonight, but let's go to another main detail, another main point. You're in San Antonio, Texas. For example, we were just looking at a photo that said "Come and take it." That wasn't for no reason. It's actually part of the culture. All right, I might have to go back. All right, check that out. That's actually I don't know for all y'all, but for those who might have looked into the history of San Antonio, that's Texan right there, buddy. That's San Antonio, in fact. And things like remember the Alamo, right? That used to be in history books, right? There's a reason for that as well, right? So when you come around talking about, oh, you want to take our guns, trust me, I've heard that before. I've heard that before. I've read about that before. Talking about you want to take the guns, and that's the thing. He might not have emphasized that tonight, in fact, but he did bring it up. And he's got these people so bamboozled. Not only is he going against what the founding of this particular city is all about, not only is he spitting in the face of that, and somehow, you know, people have been so bamboozled and mesmerized into doing it, but then he's also saying, yeah, and I'm going to take your guns too. And I'm not, to quote him, I'm going to take your assault weapons. Your quote assault weapons, going to get banned. The sale of them, the distribution of them, everything like that. All sort of different straw men and quote loopholes and stuff that I want to close up. Yeah, your weapon's going to get banned, according to Bernie Sanders. And yeah, I know he's promising you all sort of marijuana. And that's always a hit, especially here in San Antonio. Yeah, he's promising all that because he knows that he's never going to be the president anyways. He can promise you whatever he wants. Isn't that interesting? He can promise what, and then he could promise to make all the DACA, all the Dreamer kids, who, mind you, I've known illegal immigrants, whether or not I knew they were illegal. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. My whole life, right? But I certainly don't appreciate that he's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna make all these dreamers and make them illegal, and you know that's a certain kind of way, because that actually is popular amongst illegal immigrants and the relatives of illegal immigrants, and you're gonna find a lot of those in San Antonio, right? But however, it doesn't really deal with the devastating effects of, for example, mass graves and all the danger that goes along with having illegal immigration. And it doesn't really address the fact is that the main victims of criminal rapists and this and that, the main victims of those people are illegal immigrants, right? And trust me, there's different stories and things that we got to talk about on that front. But like I said, the two main things: pro-abortion. He's gonna kill. He's gonna do something with all the babies until the world's all better. All right, according to him in his hypothetical fantasy, and he's also going to take all your guns, and he's going to announce it, and he's going to brag about it in San Antonio, of all places. All right, and so it blows my mind to smithereens. I can't hardly believe it. All right, but let's see if we can play the rest of that video, or at least part of it, without it buffering, because I want to get as we close out a session, we got about 5 more minutes. I want to get a taste of what this guy was saying, and like I said, I don't vouch for this guy, but he says something very interesting about population control. Alright, so let's see if we can get a word from that guy without buffering.
Says women in developing nations want something else.
We've done surveys in African countries, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Kenya. They say they don't want birth control, they don't want abortion. What they want is clean drinking water. They want primary health care for themselves and their children.
Another town hall participant asked if people should even have children because of the threat to the environment.
All right. These people lost it, buddy. But you hear that guy, and he's like, they don't want the abortions. I know Bernie Sanders wants them to have the abortions, but that's not exactly what they're calling for. In fact, they just want some clean water. Could you concentrate on that? While Bernie Sanders is trying to export abortions all around the world, I know for a fact that there's certain places in the world where they have to reuse needles over and over and over again because they don't have any new needles. Right? And then we're gonna hear a little bit more from that guy. Meanwhile, this guy, he's about to talk about babies and how they're bad for the environment. Hold on one second. You got Julian Castro on the right.
Is it fair for us to expect our children to continue the cycle of family and generation in a world whose chaotic climate future we knowingly create?
Mosher tells me the world actually needs more babies, not fewer.
Planet Earth is a cornucopia of riches that we can unlock with our creative intelligence and make life better for all of us. There's no overpopulation problem on planet Earth. The planet absolutely can sustain population growth up to the Food and Agriculture Organization tells us 12 billion people we can easily feed. We're never going to get to 12 billion people.
All right, so I just want to stop on that guy. I don't know who that guy is. Never heard of him before. It's kind of reminiscent of what I've been talking about. What I know is to be true. What I know in my gut is to be true. Is that why don't we just keep having babies? We could have as much babies as we wanted to. And we know we're not going to overpopulate the earth. What are you, crazy? You see how much space we have? And so this guy, I don't know about the numbers, but this guy was saying we could have 12 billion people if we wanted to. We'd never make it to 12 billion. We have nothing to worry about. How about we just keep having babies and stop killing them? And so that's exactly what I was saying. And I don't know where he gets the number 12 billion. I'm sure very smart people thought up that number to where our capacity is 12 billion. But I would go even further and say that once we reach 12 billion, the world, the earth itself will actually grow. Right? And everything will be more, just more useful. We won't have to use so much of it. The earth will grow somehow. Right? 12 billion and beyond. It does not matter. It does not matter how much we can get. But however, it's a constant barrage of population control. We got to kill all the babies. We got to do it for the environment. We got to do it for whatever, some extra money. We got to do it for just any sort of reason. And it's deeply disturbing and disgusting. And I wanted to show that because there's more people and wackos out there who are believing kind of in the way that I'm believing, and in that, you know, maybe we don't have to murder all the babies. Maybe we don't have to go around the world and kill all their babies. All right? Maybe that's not even necessary. But I do want to close out this session. I appreciate everybody for hanging in there with me and stuff. I wanted to get this all out. But before we get out of here, I do want to play, not this video. Gosh.
I think that's a dumb.
Oh, man. That's triggering. That's messed up. That's poor audio. I was not trying to go to that video. See?
I think that's...
I'm sorry if anybody's wearing headphones. I'm sorry I did that to your ears, but YouTube works a certain kind of way that I had to turn my phone literally sideways in order. That's what I'm doing right now in order to get to this guy's channel instead of seeing, you know, that particular video. These guys. All right.
I think that's a Donald Trump. That's what...
I didn't mean to do that to you for a third time, but I did, alright? I'm sorry about it. I did it to myself too as well. Okay, so what we're going to end out on is this video right here. It's already got 510 views, probably go viral like his other video, but it didn't work out so well this time. I think you're going to see it in his video recording of it. They tried their best. They did a great job. I commend them for their efforts. It didn't work. For example, they were right in front of the stage, kind of find out, because you could tell by the video. And I was like, say what way they're looking, how they're looking straight forward at Bernie. If you were to look, say, 20 yards to the left of him, off the stage, that would be me. I'd be over there. I'd be right there. And I never saw Brandon, never heard Brandon. I had not a clue that there was a disturbance in the crowd. That's how the acoustics was. All right, so these people, they might have been yelling, but I didn't hear not one word that they said. All right, let me turn my phone back on sideways, get the audio right, and then I want to bid y'all adieu and say goodnight and stuff, man. I gotta take it easy for the rest of the night, and I'll probably definitely see y'all up on that Monday broadcast or something like that. Gosh, man, we need to get up out of here on YouTube. Am I right? taking our sweet time with it. But in the meantime, I will see you on Monday and stuff. But let's check out this video as we close out and commend these guys for their efforts.
Crises facing this country. It is a sad state of affairs when we have a president of the United States who believes that climate change is a hoax.
Are you giving away your
Well, the scientific community has a slight disagreement with Mr. Trump.
Your debts, are you going to give them all? Are you? You're a hypocrite.
Climate change is an existential threat.
Are you going to give away your debts? Are you going to
Our
give away your
administration
debts?
believes in
Are you going to give
science,
up your
not
debts?
right-wing
Are you going to give up
extremism.
your
Yeah, we don't want it to get buffering, so I guess I gotta play it in segments. So we're gonna take a pause real quick and then play it some more. But you already know this in the beginning. Like, this lady is a stranger. We're all mushed together, and she finds it somehow in her logic and reason to start grabbing at a stranger and start putting your hands in a stranger's face. What, it's because they're yelling? It's like, no, you can't do that. That's actually absurd that you're doing that. That you're grabbing all on somebody. Yeah, they're yelling, but you're at a rally. But you can't grab people. Anyways. Look at that. Did you see that? Another person came and just pushed like a bulldozer. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna push you now. You're in a crowd. You're not gonna push this person anywhere. They're in a crowd too. You're just being violent. You just got emotional. They said something you didn't like, and now you're starting to grab people, dude. I don't care what rally you're at. You don't just grab people. You're not the security.
Off the principles of the Green New Deal. Create 20 million good-paying jobs as we transform our energy system away from fossil static efficiency and this is a moral issue. We must make sure that
As they're, dragging her out, as you'd imagine. Hardly anybody heard this. Bernie steamrolled over it. I didn't know it even took place. But she's talking about, that abortion is murder, to quote her. That's what she said. And meanwhile, at the same exact time, Bernie Sanders is like, we need to leave our children a healthy and clean earth for our children and our grandchildren. You mean the ones that we're supposed to kill for the earth? Are those ones, or the ones that we let live? For which grandchildren are you talking about? The ones that we're chopping up and scraping up out of the womb? All right, to sacrifice to some sort of weather god or whatever that you're talking about? It's kind of interesting. So go ahead and just drag this lady about it because you can't handle it. Because you can't handle the debate.
when we talk about issues that must be dealt with, we in fact are going to reform a broken and racist criminal justice system. We do not want to continue a situation where we have more people in jail than any other country, including China, 4 times over.
But I didn't see them. So I don't know if they dipped out by the time I got in there. Stop playing this dang video because it's going to be buffering. I wish y'all